Hey, Cindy.
Hi.
Welcome back. We're back again with Pondering Podcasts. I'm super excited to jump into another conversation. This week, we are talking about The Brendan Show, episode 83. It's called Train Yourself to Take Action. And I'm super excited to talk about this one on the heels of last week, where we talked about turning a should into a goal. And so now, all right, now we have a goal. What do we do to take action? How do we get ourselves to take action and train ourselves? So,
yep, love it.
This is a nice little 10-minute episode. And if you haven't listened to it yet, go ahead and fast forward to start at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, because he does have a lot of ads in the beginning, and then he pops back in the middle and throws in some more. So they're all for him and his stuff, which I think is nice. But anyway, if you don't want to listen to ads, that'll help you out. So we learned in this episode about taking consistent, slow steps towards improvement and how that is the way to keep your momentum going to create positive change. And I thought that that was super powerful for us, for coaches as entrepreneurs who constantly have a running to-do list of things that could get done, but you have to give yourself some grace and some time and the freedom to say the workday is over, even though it could go on and on forever, especially those of us who work from home.
Absolutely.
So I guess I just wanted to chat a little bit about, so he said a couple of things. He said, if you have a constant intention and a constant desire, then you can make progress. He said you need to be aware of what you want to do, you need to accept where you are, and you need to have some accountability to make the change. And I love that he said consistent application can make shifts in and those can be just small actions. So for me, the big question was, what are the small actions that you can take today, this week, this month, in order to make progress towards your goal? So how does that resonate with you, or how does that fit into you and your business in terms of taking action and training yourself to be consistent?
I think for me, like that taking action piece is really being able to take a big task. So like say a newsletter, you talked about that last week, like, oh, I should do a newsletter. So, but taking that big task that, maybe a business would work on with multiple people, but we, as our own selves putting out information or working on it, taking that and making it smaller, like focusing on a section and kind of like, one of my thoughts is like eating the elephant one little bite at a time, because it's such a big thing to not get caught up in the big thing, but actually just make forward momentum within it. Like, so yes, a newsletter. Okay, well, what's going to be about? Breaking it down for me, which, he talked a lot about, focus on using those action words. So, being able to know my goal, well, working how, all those different ones, like I'm seeking clients, or, how can we put things into action, versus just sitting on them. So I tend to make it smaller, because then I feel like I've achieved something, and blocking it into my day. So as you said, like we could work forever, but knowing first when my best working hours are, when they'll be, when I can be quiet and just in my own space without any disruptions, which working from home is hard, having that. So for me, it's just knowing I have to have flexibility, but also having structure, which is kind of like two opposites. But I really like the idea of being able to use the action words and setting those intentions, and what is that going to mean for my business? What would it mean as a coach, and not having an agenda for a client? We know what their goals are, but making sure as the coach, I'm not setting that agenda knowing, well, but you said you wanted to, and they've gone in a different direction. So being very mindful of the process, and knowing that it's about today, and what forward momentum action can I take today, or even maybe today's too big. Maybe it's in this hour. Yeah. What can I do within this hour of time? Maybe I've had a client cancel, or maybe I have a client who needs me more, wants to schedule a session, in the next hour. Well, that throws the schedule off. So having that flexibility, but knowing when I'm going to put those different things in. So that's where the structure comes in. And then the action is to what will I actually do? If I feel like I should write a newsletter, well, what action do I take? And then, after I've decided that yes, it's a goal, or no, it's not, what do I do then? And so for me, it's about having that structure and making it small.
Yeah.
So what's that like for you? I mean, I know you were shitting yourself last week about a newsletter. How would like setting action words work for you and what you're trying to do in your business?
Yeah, I think similarly, having the action words and putting action words to it does really change the whole perspective. Having to do something bigger. I think for me, it's breaking it down, because what I used to find myself running into was I'd put the big elephant on the to-do list in a day. And then I would get frustrated every day that it had to get continued to be pushed to the next to-do list, to the next to-do list. And because I feel like in a business like this, the work is never done and the to-do list never goes away, it can be very defeating to feel like you didn't accomplish anything. So what I learned for me in terms of, something to actually do is that I would give myself gaps of time. So I'm going to work on the newsletter for 30 minutes today, and then setting that 30-minute timer and saying, okay, I'm going to sit and work on that. And then if I get interrupted, as I can happen at home, right? Pause the timer. Okay, I spent 12 minutes. So I still have that many minutes left on my to-do list in order to check that off for today. And I found that I had a greater sense of accomplishment when I could say, okay, I spent my 30 minutes. Maybe it was in 5-minute increments, or maybe it was in the whole 30 minutes. But at the end of the day, that thing is off the to-do list until it gets put back on in a different increment of time. And that for me felt so much more like I was achieving and I was taking steps and I was moving forward, as opposed to what felt more like a burden that I kept having to push it and push it. And why can't you get this done? And, then I would, I should have been done with this already. Then I'm shitting all over myself again, thinking that, if you were more productive, then the negative self-talk comes in and you're just a whole mess, and that makes for no productivity. So I think for me, I think similarly to you, blocking out that time, giving it the time, and then saying, okay, that's check done. And I should be proud of that step because that step was done for today. However that looks, maybe it's 5 minutes that I'm going to block off only 5 minutes today for one task. So I think, that is for me how this shows up.
That's great. Yeah. I think there was one thing that he talked about of like the 50-50 in a relationship. And then he's like, well, no, it's not 50-50. It's 100% you showing up and 100% me showing up and being there. And one thing that was important for me is with my clients, because I'm showing up 100% and they have to show up 100%. And so when something doesn't go exactly like we thought it would, or, I feel like they're not making the progress they want, or maybe they feel like they're not making the progress they want. I only am accountable for myself. So I show up as my best self. They show up as their best self, and trusting that it's not my job to fix it, because as coaches, we always want better for our clients. So I really thought how he took that responsibility and the accountability of ourselves and others, and knowing like almost like a boundary there of, if I say I'm only 50%, then I might want to start like, oh, I'm going to put in 80 because the other person's only putting in 20. And then that's where all that other stuff comes in of trying to fill the gap. So it helped me shift the mindset. It's a little, I'm not exactly sure how it fit into the like taking action piece of this podcast, but it stood out to me of that responsibility and accountability for self. And so when we use action words to help us move forward towards goals, that's on us. So I loved your idea with creating that flexibility of pausing the timer, because time to me just keeps going. And so I just keep packing it all in. But when you offer that idea of, well, just pause the timer and you can come back to it later, and then giving myself grace, if I don't come back to it later because everything fell apart out that door, then tomorrow I have 15 or 17 minutes that I'm going to plug back into the schedule. So it really, I like that idea. Thank you for sharing that. For our clients and for our, fellow coaches, I think that just gives us, different options. How can we do what we want to do and believe in ourselves and follow through and have those little wins that we can then get to the bigger pot of gold kind of thing. So this was a good one.
Things might get in your way, and that's okay too. So how can we compensate, or how can we work around when things don't go exactly how you wanted them to go? So
Yep. Lessons learned. Yeah. Yes. A good one.
Well, shout out and share any strategies that you have to keep your momentum going and to help you take those steps every day. We'd love to hear your ideas, and we will be back next time on Pondering Podcasts. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Leslie. Take care.